Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together. All right, real quick before we get started on the show, I'm just going to talk about Treeline Academy. You've heard me say it. I can't even tell you how many times. Mark Livesey is treelineacademy.net. That's treelineacademy.net. Sign up. Use the promo code PC2020. Save yourself $20. Can't say it enough. It's awesome, amazing, most comprehensive e-scouting course out there. Check it out for yourself. Sign up. Use promo code PC2020. And now let's get to the show. All right, so I'm sitting here and I am talking to Rodger Holscher. And Rodger, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, Rodger Holscher just turned 34 not too long ago. I'm currently living in a town outside of Boise, Idaho. I'm originally from California. I know everybody in Idaho hates hearing that. All the Californians moving up here, but I grew up in a small town in northeastern California, northeast of Redding, a ranching community, farming community. Grew up there and got my start into law enforcement after doing a bunch of different jobs, getting into that. But I've been a law enforcement officer for just about 9 years now.
So I think the way you would say it these days is you always identified as as an Idahoan. Yes. So,
and people give me a lot of crap for it, even at work or anytime, and it's all in fun and all good. But it's the area that I grew up in was so much more rural and country than the area I live in now, that I'm like, you guys grew up here, where you were 10 minutes from a Walmart. I had to drive for 2 hours to get to a Walmart where I grew up, so people think of California as beaches and, San Francisco, LA, and they forget there's a huge, country, Western portion of the state. But
yeah, never stepped foot in there since I was a child in the state of California, so I couldn't tell you what it's like now. But, I remember some kind of like rural parts and, although going to visit my grandparents in Thousand Oaks wasn't exactly rural either. So
yeah, Thousand Oaks, that's Southern California, isn't it?
Yeah.
I spent some time down there going to college. I was all over that state, it seemed like. I'm
sorry.
Lots changed. I said, I'm sure a lot's changed since you were there.
I'm sure.
I don't go back. I still got all my family's there except for my little sister, but it's I don't go back. I say I've been back 3 times, and it's been for funerals or weddings. I guess you can call weddings funerals too, depending on your outlook on them.
Only if they get married during hunting season. So
yeah. Agreed.
But let's kind of get into a little bit, like, did you start hunting when you were when you lived in California then, or were you
yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah, I grew up, so we're just kind of the nature of where I grew up. We lived on about a couple hundred acres, had a cattle ranch, and just in a really, really nice valley in northeastern California. And there was game abundant, kind of a thing. And we moved up there when I was in 2nd grade. So I pretty much my whole life grew up in that environment. And my dad was a big hunter. So was my grandpa. Everybody was. So as far as back as I can remember, we always me and my brother always had a BB gun in our hands or a 22. And much to the chagrin of the California Fish and Game, I shot just about everything that moved. Nothing was safe. My grandpa used to pay us a nickel for every bird that we shot because they were crapping all over his farm equipment. So we'd go out and shoot as much as we could, and they didn't know any better at the time, I guess, but kind of grew up into that and watched my dad deer hunt and doing waterfowl, small game hunting. And it was always kind of a natural progression to get into deer, and couldn't really hunt anything else. Bear at the time, you were able to run with dogs, but we didn't really know anybody that ran bears for dogs or bears with dogs. Elk was a once in a lifetime tag. Pretty much so was antelope. So it was basically deer. You were hunting deer if you were there. And and hogs later on. I got into hunting hogs, but the my grandpa took me out on my first day deer hunting and shot a little fork and horn with him, and then got another deer my next year rifle hunting, and then got into archery. So I've been shooting archery almost exclusively since I guess I was 13 or 14, and ended up getting into the archery tech side of things when I was in college, working at Bass Pro Shops and then later Sportsman's Warehouse. But that's kind of how I got started in all that. But I kind of spoiled myself. So 12 got a buck, 13 got a buck, 14 was my first year archery hunting. First morning archery hunting, like within the first hour, I think I arrowed a buck by myself, went back and got my dad, and he didn't believe me until he walked up and saw the buck. But I was like, oh man, this is easy. and then didn't get anything for years after that. But it, I just thinking back on how much I didn't know about anything. My dad didn't shoot archery. Nobody really knew shot archery or was that much into it. I still remember shooting aluminum arrows, but it's came a long way as far as what knowledge you can get out there as far as tuning your bow and making sure everything flies right. I still remember just screwing on broadheads and thinking they were going to hit with my field points, and then missing deer and going, what the heck? Why did I miss that? But
you are not the only one, my friend. You are not the only one with that.
Oh, because it says on the package, right? It says field point accurate. So
Yep.
you just, oh man, I could just screw on these, NAP 100-grain Thunderheads, and no, man, I missed a buck on a water hole 3 times. Just sailed each shot over his back, same spot, not thinking I should just Kentucky windage it and aim lower. But yeah, it's all because of that. I didn't know broadhead tuning. Nobody ever told me anything about that. So
in your defense, though, there was also no rangefinders back then. There was probably definitely no fiber optic sight pins back then. They might have been like the plastic that was clear, so just a little bit of light might hit it on the tip. The ones that were so fragile.
There definitely wasn't the fiber optic wraps. I remember the old, I want to say it was a True Glow pin, but it was like a piece of fiber optic that kind of stuck up outside of the housing, and that was it. Like there was no wrap.
Those were high tech. Those were high tech. Because I remember the ones I had a piece of like, some of them were, it was like a piece of white and a piece of orange plastic. And it was like a little ball on the end of the pin.
They were huge. Like everybody's like, oh, I can't shoot, the 2.9, the 2.9 fiber optics. These things were like 5.0s,
And then they'd always break off, get snagged on something and snap off. You get in your tree stand in the morning and look down as soon as first light came and look at your bow and go, oh, no pin.
Yeah, no full capture followaways, or that was even before whisker biscuits. So you'd draw back and your arrow would come off the bow, and you'd have to put it back onto the rest. And
yes, all of those mistakes were made. I'm pretty sure I did every single one.
Came a long way since then.
Heck yeah, we did.
Yeah,
and now I'm too scared to even work on my own stuff. But I don't know why. But
it's easy to throw them out of tune now that I've kind of got into just tuning all my own stuff and doing all that. It's easy to, you make one little tweak and it affects everything else. So it's kind of a snowball effect, I guess.
Especially the whole split limb thing with the shimming different cams and doing all that stuff.
Yeah, I shoot a Matthews, so it's got the top hats, and switching the top hats around and cam timing and all that. It's had my share of sleepless nights cussing at this thing, trying to get it all tuned after switching the strings out on it. But
nice.
Shooting good now.
So, at one point, did you get into like elk hunting? When did that happen?
Until I moved to Idaho. I came up here with my dad as a non-resident to rifle elk hunt back in 2015, I think, something like that. Bought a couple deer tags and an elk tag when you could get a deer tag as a non-resident over the counter. We went rifle elk hunting. That was the first time I've ever really gotten elk hunting, but I never did see an elk the whole time we were up. We were up in the Panhandle area, and with some family, they were just basically like, drive this 4-wheeler up into this clear cut and see if one steps out. And didn't know really much about elk hunting at the time, and didn't see an elk. Shot a couple nice whitetail bucks, but that was it. And when we moved up here, me and my wife, it was I was bound and determined to try to kill an elk. And first year, I didn't know what I was doing. Went with a buddy that was a non-resident guy I grew up with in high school, and didn't know the area. Kind of threw pins on a map, and I was wanting to hunt them like elk excuse me, like mule deer, which it's a lot like Brian Barney hunts. We were just talking about him, but as far as being able to spot him in open country and kind of spot and stalk him and not call him, that's kind of more what I was trying to do, avoiding the thick, dark timber. And then, fast forward a little while, knowing more, I'm like, that's where I should have been, but I was trying to get into the open country and try to glass them like I do mule deer. So that was a skunk year, but last year I was able to arrow my first bull, which was a pretty neat experience. A buddy of mine that I work with now, he was working for the local sheriff's department. Was pretty much determined to get me onto a bull. He never took his bow off of his pack until I killed my bull, which was pretty special. I can't thank him enough for that. But
So, I mean, what else did you learn that like you were totally doing wrong when it came to trying to get, on an elk?
So, and it's kind of what we were talking about, gear related stuff. Is I'd sent my buddy a list of gear, like, hey, this is what I'm got. I mean, down to the little Excel spreadsheet with the weights and the prices and what I was using, down to socks, And I made sure on there was a pair of gaiters, and it was that year. So it was 2 years ago. It was a super rainy year. It rained every day that we were in the elk woods. And my buddy didn't have gaiters. He had waterproof boots, but he didn't have gaiters. And not knowing how important that was, he didn't know any different. And we spent every morning hunting, but his feet were so soaked, you could hear him walking next to you. It was just so soggy, his feet. And, and that's a miserable way to hunt. And that's not something you can do the long term. And so we had to pretty much every day, half day, go back to the truck. I didn't have a stove for my teepee, so we had to basically start up the truck and dry his boots out every day. And so we were like, oh, while we're in the truck, we might as well drive around and look at this new spot. So I was going spot to spot to spot every day, only hunting in the morning, because by the time we drove around and got to the next spot, it was almost too late in the day to hunt. And so that really took a lot of time away from our hunting experience and not really getting able to know an area. And like, I know you know who Mark Livesay is, but his e-scouting stuff is going to the Western Hunting Expo and actually hearing him talk, and then getting one of his master e-scouting class and going through that right now. It's everything that he says to do. We were doing the exact opposite. We had no plan. We didn't have any, my maps weren't downloaded. I had my maps downloaded, my offline maps for the one spot that we were initially going to go, but nothing else. And so we kept having to drive back to cell phone service and wait to download maps to go to this new area. And it was just absolutely a nightmare. And we did it to ourselves. And I think that preparation of having that e-scouting done, having those multiple spots to go, and really the gear, after I think day 4 of all that, we finally went to a local kind of an outdoor store and bought him a set of gaiters, and he was fine for the next 2 days. But we had already dug ourselves such a hole that we couldn't get out of it.
That osmosis
that was
really pulls it into your boots, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it was. And he was cussing his boots and like, they say they were waterproof, I'm going to send them back. And I'm not going to say what brand they were, but they were, reputable brand. And I was like, dude, it's not your boots. It's not coming in from your boots. It's coming in from your, everything else from your knees down that's hitting this wet grass and brush and everything. And it was, he just had never worn gaiters, so he had no idea how the impact that this thing can have.
Yeah. It almost makes me want to get a taller pair of gaiters, because I've got like the mid knee, or not mid knee, but like the mid shin,
Yeah. Oh, okay. Not the ones that go right to your knees.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people give me a lot of crap for it, but I wear gaiters even if it's not wet outside or snowing. I've actually had a few times where wearing those knee-high gaiters, I wear the First Light gaiters, has probably saved me from impaling myself on some deadfall. Just gives you that extra little bit of, I guess, toughness layer that those branches can't poke through, falling into deadfall and getting jabbed and having a real bad scratch and a massive bruise on my leg, but it didn't puncture. And I almost guarantee it's because of those gaiters. And so I hunt in so much deadfall area that I pretty much wear those things no matter what. And they are hot. They do make you sweat a little bit more in the heat of the, I guess, season. But I know if I sit down the glass, I open them up and air everything out so it dries. But it's something you got to keep conscious of.
No, that's a good thing to think about. As I think my first one, I brought them on the hunt, never actually wore them. Left him in the truck, but I was lucky that it never rained or snowed or did anything. So, I mean, I would have been screwed if it, would have been out somewhere and did that. But especially cold weather, it makes it worse,
Yeah. Yeah. You can't just leave them out and let your boots dry while you're glassing for the morning, It's, although those, have you seen those new Graxaw boot dryers?
It's like a little battery pack or something that goes on them, like a cell.
It's a little fan that's about like that. Yeah, and you plug it into Poseidon Energy or some type of a battery pack, and it just a little fan that blows, and they're really lightweight.
So is there a heating element in them, or
no? There's not. It's just a little fan, and there's two of them, and they're real thin, they're real lightweight, but they're I know like Brian Call and Lampers use them. I got to see them firsthand and at the summit, but they're just to get that air circulating through those boots to dry them out a little bit more. It might be worth, I don't even think they're 6 ounces.
Nice.
It might be worth that. When you're not using a stove or something like that that you can dry out that stuff. At least a little bit of air circulation has got to be better than just leaving them sit there.
No, absolutely. Anything would help, right? I know I've seen some guys do like hand warmers. They'll take some hand warmers with them and throw those in.
Yeah.
And I don't know what would actually work. I've never tried doing that myself, but
I did that one year because my boots got wet. They weren't like wet on the inside, but they were constantly wet on the outside, and it was down into the teens, so they were freezing. And I don't like starting off with super cold boots, so I just leave those in the toe box area, those hand warmers, and I think it got them warm enough to where they were able to dry a little bit, not be frozen in the morning when I put them on.
Nice. No, that's pretty.
I don't know how much they work for drying things, but it sure made it a lot more comfortable putting the boots on the next morning.
For sure. So let's flash forward. What did you do differently from learning your mistakes, not doing everything you did, and then going into last year where you actually got your bull?
I guess being into elk, my buddy helped a lot. He was at the time. So I met him in the spring of 2019 after I killed my spring bear. We were talking. He was working at the sheriff's department at the time, but I'd already bought my elk tag for that year and planned my hunt with my buddy. He and this kid, his name is Chris. I call him a kid, but he's 24 years old. He's just 10 years younger than I am, so I call him kid.
That is a kid.
Yeah. He is a lot more mature than I was at his age, so I'll give him that. But no, he'd been hunting this area and he invited me to go, but it was too late that year. So flash forward to 2020, already had that area picked out. We knew where we were going to go. He had since transferred over to my department and was in the field training, so he couldn't take days off because he was doing the whole FTO gig and academy. So I knew I was going to be going into this area by myself for the first few days. And then on the weekends, when he was able to get out, he was able to come up there with me. But I knew I was going to be in elk, and I really concentrated on finding elk. I mean, you can't kill them if they ain't there. So getting into country where there was elk, the thick north-facing timber pockets that I was avoiding the year before, was getting into this next year. Worked on my calling a lot and just really getting into elk. And I had some pretty close opportunities before he showed up, but he's a really good caller. He's been hunting elk a lot since he still as a kid, but been hunting elk a lot longer than I have. And so even though he's only been archery hunting for a few years, he grew up elk hunting with a rifle, but he knew elk, he knew their behavior, and he was a really good caller. So, and I got to give him so many props. His attitude is so much better than mine, and I've been working on that a lot. I know that's one thing that's probably my fault, is that my attitude. I could get pretty pessimistic, even in the elk woods or even in the woods, and that was one thing that sorry to digress from the story, but that's
all part of it,
man. I told him that's one thing I told him this year I was going to work on, and it definitely made our spring bear hunt a lot better. It was just my attitude, and knowing that's my flaw I got to work on. But I had gone in the first night by myself, a couple miles in, and go down to start eating my dinner, and I forgot my spoon. So here I am, from the truck where my spoon was, I was like 8-mile 4-wheeler ride and then a couple-mile hike, and I'm sitting there already hear an elk bugle. My first night in there, I wasn't gonna go back out to the truck and come back. I was too excited to hunt the next morning. So I stayed, and I kind of didn't really think much of it. And I'm such a how can I fix that and do this and tinker with stuff? I never thought about how to make my own spoon, or to get by without it. I just figured, I don't know what I was thinking, but I wasn't thinking at all. But I was like, I could just live on the snacks that I brought. That was a big mistake. After 3 days, 10 miles a day, thousands of feet of elevation, just chasing elk all over, I bonked like I've never bonked before. Like, I didn't think I was going to make it out of this hole. I was so bad, just lightheaded, dizzy. I'd take a couple steps and, have to sit down because I was getting so lightheaded. Every time I drink water, I'd throw it back up. Like, I was in a bad way. Like, contemplated sitting there on the side of the mountain, like, man, I might have to hit my SOS button on my inReach. Like, I was not good. But I knew I was going out to meet him at the truck, and I could get my spoon, or I could get some more food in me. I think I only had like 2,500 calories in 3 days. And so I was just working on,
terrible,
dude. That's most people eat like 3,000 calories a day without all that strenuous activity.
Yeah.
So I had wore myself so thin that finally get some food in me. But Chris gets there, his first time hunting that season, elk at least, and he's fresh, he's in shape, he's 10 years younger than I am, and I'm still, even though I had 2 of my peak refill meals at the truck, like, I was still, you can't just make up that type of caloric deficit in one meal. And so I was smoked, and we get in there, and I'm in a bad mood because I'm smoked, and he's like wanting to go back down into these nasty holes that I was just in and barely made it out. And he kept a good attitude, and he pushed me to go after. And I called him the Phantom Bugler because he's 24. He's got good ears. I've been in, now 4 shootings and have a lot of hearing loss, and supposed to wear hearing aids, but I didn't bring them on this hunting trip. And I will now bring them because I didn't realize what I wasn't hearing. And, he'd be like, "Oh, you hear that bugle down in the bottom?" And I'm like, "BS, dude. I didn't hear nothing down there. I'm not going down into that hole," And so we ended up going out. We're going back to the truck. I think it was day 5. And we're driving the 4-wheelers back, and I'm still smoked. Looking forward to getting to the creek by the truck, kind of refreshing, getting some food in me. And he stops in the middle of the road, and I'm not happy, right? I'm just pissed. And he's like, "Man, I hear that there's people hear bulls in here, and they see bulls in this drainage." And I'm like, "Dude, it's right next to the main road, or not main road, but like main 4-wheeler trail. Like, people drive by this all the time. There's not bulls in there." It's like, "No, let's just see." So he lets out a couple bugles, and sure enough, he hears one way down on the bottom. It's like, "Oh, did you hear that bull?" Again, I'm like, "No, I don't hear nothing, dude." And so I'm still pretty pissed at this point. And he's like, no, rips another one. And then this next time, a bull answers closer, and I actually hear it this time. And we look at each other, and I was like, okay, I heard that one. He's closer. He's like, I think we could kill that bull. And I don't know, it's just I got a rush of energy that I didn't have before. And so we made a play and kind of snuck in. It sounded like the bull was bedded. It was about, I don't know, 11 o'clock in the morning. So we make a play down into this bull. And as soon as we jump into the timber, we jump this massive velvet buck. I mean, this is September 5th, I think it was. And buck is still in velvet. We didn't get a good look at it, but we were both like, oh, that's at least a 180 buck. Just a really nice velvet muley. And so I'm kind of focusing on that, like bird in the hand versus, two in the bush. And I know this buck we didn't bust him hard because, he was ripping bugles and we were kind of walking like elk. So he just kind of gingerly went off. So I thought we can get in on this. So I'm kind of sneaking through the timber trying to get back on this buck, and he's still calling and ripping bugles and everything. And I end up seeing the buck again at like 80, can't get a shot at it. And then we go back down to where we last saw the buck, thinking I might see him again. Didn't. I set down my pack and my bow and gonna have a snack. And he's still in elk mode, and I'm about to eat a snack mode. And again, because I can't hear anything, he hears something and he's like, grab your bow. And I'm like, okay, grab my bow. I'm like, I think he hears the buck coming back or something, and it's like, he's coming in. I'm thinking still the buck. It's like, where's he at? I can't see him. He's like, no, there's a bull coming up the draw. I couldn't see him based on where we were. He could. And so this bull's coming in. I still don't hear him. My buddy sees him. And all of a sudden he goes, come on, let's go. And we take off running. We leave our packs and we take off running kind of down this draw after this bull that I still don't see. And he tells me to run ahead of him. And I go ahead towards this kind of a knob, and he hangs back, and I peek over the knob and I see this bull at the bottom of this bowl at 64 yards. And it's like, oh crap. Yeah, there was a bull, and I range him, gonna shoot him there, but he had kind of turned and then started coming back up the draw. My buddy's calling was working. This bull still hasn't made a peep. No bugling, no nothing. Starts coming up the draw. And as soon as I could see his royals come up over the brush, thirds, as soon as I see his seconds, I kind of knelt down and drew. And then I crouched, full draw crouched. And as soon as he came up a little bit more, I just stood up and worked through I probably just jerked the heck out of my hinge release, but it was a frontal at 12 yards. That's not a whole lot you can do to miss at that point. And hit him frontal and watched him die in 10 seconds, right in front of me. And it was it's one of those experiences I'll never forget.
Nice.
And it legitimately is all just because of my buddy. Like there's having him there to push me more than anything is I probably would have packed it up before that. I was just mentally not there, and he was, and he pushed me to it.
So the lesson there is what?
My nutrition, and I guess I took it for granted. I don't think I've ever pushed my body to that point during a hunt before. And I think I took the nutrition for granted instead of like, no, it sucks. I might have to miss the morning hunt, but I got to go back and get my spoon. That's a decision I regretted for a while after that. It took me a while to get that energy back. But
I'm just wondering why you didn't take a stick and whittle a spoon for yourself.
Dude, I don't know how many people, because a lot of people call me MacGyver because the way I take with stuff, but they're like, really? You couldn't have? And I was like, dude, there's 10 things that I could think of right now that I should have done. But at the time, I don't know why I didn't think about it. It was like, I'll be okay. I'll be okay until I can get back to the truck. And then it just hit me like a ton of bricks that last little bit.
I think I might even hydrated that food and cut the pouch off so it was shorter, and you could just dump it
and just drank it. Yeah. Oh, that was one of the 10 things that I should have done that I thought about. Like, holy cow, I could have just. It's basically a soup anyway, most of them. So I could have just drank it and been better. But yeah, now the nutrition.
Power of positive
thinking.
Buddies,
my buddy's outlook on everything and his good attitude killed that bull. Instead of nah, we can't get to it, or no, I'm too tired. It was no, we can go do this. And I've always pushed my body as far as limits goes, playing college sports and everything else. But that was, I even pushed it past what I originally thought I could. And you can do a lot with, what's going on between your ears, I say. So that was definitely one of those lessons that
I've been,
that I learned.
I've been trying to push myself mentally more and more, because I realize, physical is super important, and sometimes I'm lacking in that area, and I can beat my body up and do something as long as I push my mind to force me through it. So
I think your mind will fail long before your body will.
Yeah.
And that's, and I got to get better at that. That's along with the attitude thing too, and being a good hunting partner. I haven't been hunting with other people for very long. Like, I was a solo archery guy because my dad didn't start archery hunting until I was in college, but I was by myself hunting. So it was never, I never had to ask or bounce ideas off anybody. I just did what I wanted to do because I was the only one out there. And so hunting with somebody else that also had good ideas about what to do was something that I wasn't used to. And I butted heads. My buddy that I elk hunted with my first year elk hunting when I moved up here, I said we just got skunked on everything. He's a very strong, opinionated person like I am, type A personality kind of guy. And we almost started fist fighting on the mountain. And we laugh about it now, but there was a point we almost went to blows just because I wanted to go this way, he wanted to go this way, or we had a different thought in our mind on which way we wanted to go and how we wanted to work our way through this timber. And it was, he's the same way. He solo elk hunts and I solo hunted. And so it was just, I didn't really realize it until this winter. I don't know. Wintertime, I usually reload and tinker with my new loads for the rifle for the year. And I'm reloading, listening to the podcasts, and I can't remember whose podcast it was, but it was about being a good hunting partner. And they talked about all this stuff, and I'm sitting here freeloading like, holy cow, this podcast is for me. I am the exact person that they're saying you don't want to be, and I had that oh shit self-reflection moment that I think will pay huge dividends in the future as far as hunting. Like I said, this spring bear hunt is one of those that it paid off big, and it was so much more fun and rewarding because my job, I'm stressed out all the time, and hunting is my release. It's my reset. And why did I bring that amount of stress level up there on the mountain that's supposed to de-stress and release all that stress? And so it was really like a wow kind of a moment that I had. And I don't know, hopefully going forward, I can get as good as I can at that. And I tell my buddy, I'm like, dude, call me out on it. If I'm being that guy again, like, just blatant call me out. And I need that to happen. People need to call me out when I do stuff like that, because it's sometimes we're our worst enemies as far as our attitude.
So my buddy Johnny Mack is one of the most positive people I've ever talked to in my life. Anytime you hang up the phone after talking to him, you're smiling just because of the positivity that comes through that phone when you're talking to him. It's crazy. But it makes me think, though, that's the kind of person that you need to, you know what I mean? Like, you need to be sometimes. And I find myself, if I'm negative or whatever, I'm like, man, there's no reason to be like that. It doesn't pay off any way whatsoever.
No.
It really doesn't. But so I try and be more positive like Johnny and think things, the power of positive thinking, as he says. So it seems to help, and I'm going to continue to do that. And maybe you'll continue with the power of positive thinking as well.
Yeah. I love what Johnny's doing over there with his podcast and the Soul Seekers and all that stuff. Like, that's, like you said, that dude is just positive to the T, and great mentor for anybody that's looking to get into hunting and everything. That's, I wasn't such a good mentor. Just like I said, I was a big solo guy, and so hunting with somebody else was a tough hurdle for me to get over, and especially a younger guy, a guy that's 10 years younger, that I have all this experience of mistakes that I've made, and I'm trying to tell him, no, let's not do that. And instead of hearing what he has to say and knowing it's not the same situation, that he knows what he's doing, trust that he knows what he's doing. I'd lose my temper, and I wouldn't lose it for that long, but I always had those snaps, those, passive aggressive asshole moments that, it's a drain on the hunt. It's a drain on his positive attitude and what this hunt could be. And it was man, I wish I could remember what that podcast was or whose it was, because I'd sure love to give him a lot of credit for it, because it's
I know the podcast you're talking about, and I've listened to it too, and I couldn't tell you who it was, but I know I've listened to it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the definition of a crappy hunting partner, for sure.
Yeah. No, and man, I'm telling you, everything that guy said, it was me, and I was like, wow. So my buddy's been hunting with me for, I don't know, however many hunts, and he's been dealing with that, and has still kept a positive attitude and not called me an asshole to my face. Like, dude's even, his attitude's even better than I thought.
So are you guys going out though? Are you guys going to go out this year together?
Yeah. He's able to. He's off the field training program and out of zone and doing really well. And he's able to. We actually are both able to take a bunch of time off. We usually reserve a lot of it for spring bear and then elk hunting. But we're both. I took off. I think I'll be off from the August 31st to September 21st.
Holy cow! Nice.
Yeah. I'll have to come back. I got a 5-month-old boy and my wife at home that I'll have to come back for. But I believe I'll be able to be out there from the 31st till I think September 11th, and I'll have to come back for a few days to watch my son while my wife works, and then be able to go back out for another few. But Dennis Stokes should be joining us on that one too.
That's awesome.
That'll be a lot of fun.
That's exciting. So speaking of Dennis, what's you're a gear junkie. What is your favorite piece of gear? Is it your initial ascent pack?
Man, I love that pack. It's hard for me to put a favorite on anything, because it really depends on that always goes with me no matter what hunt I'm doing. But I put backpacks, I put boots all on in the same, and then your weapon system on like even tier. When people are like, oh, what's the one thing I should spend money on? It's like, well, I can't just say one thing, because you could buy a really nice backpack but shitty boots, and you're going to have a miserable time. You could buy really nice boots and a shitty backpack, and if you do kill something, because that's the goal, and you're going to have a shitty time. Or weapon system. If you don't have a good weapon system, you can't capitalize on those opportunities. So I do love that pack. It is it's been so much better. I had a lot of bad experiences with prior packs that I was Chris, the guy I hunt with, actually was the one who turned me on to Initial Scent. He's been using their packs, and a friend of Dennis and Joe's for pretty much, I think, after only a few months of them being in business, and brought his pack over one day after I had a bad experience with my previous pack packing out my bear, and just tried it on with a lot of weight in it. It was just night and day difference. It fits my body, that lumbar pad, everything. Just the more weight you put in it, the more it just sticks to my back, and just it's been a blessing, that's for sure.
You can say your mystery ranch sucked. Nobody cares.
So I'll say it, because I don't mind talking crap about it.
Because mine did.
It was a Kuiu. It was the Ultra frame, or the Ultra suspension system that I had. It was a Kuiu. I think at the time it was the 3200 bag or something. I can't remember, but it was just miserable. And the narrow frame and the thin frame, and then not much of a lumbar pad. And it felt great with, you're walking around 30, 35 pounds. It always squeaked, and I hated that.
That's the same with the Mystery Ranch. Always squeaked.
But it once I put that bear on it, all it was boned out meat and hide and head. So there's no structure to it. And I didn't have the Kuiu load shelves, but I was doing the whole wedging the meat against the frame, and with camp and everything else that I had in the bag, and it set so low on my back, and then just not being able to secure it because of how narrow the frame is. I mean, if you think about it, that Initial Scent pack, it starts up really wide, and then it tapers down a little bit narrower, but it's still at its narrow point. It's still, don't know, 10, 12 inches wide. If you think about it, what do we carry weight wise that's narrow? Like the Kuiu frame. I mean, it's that, nothing you carry, your quarters, your game bags, everything is wide. And so that wide frame on the initial send, it just cradles that meat and that load really well. And it keeps it above my waistline, which is huge. And it just, your knees, your joints are still going to feel it, but not having to overexert yourself to control a load that's slushing around on your back. Like that bear I packed out, it was just over a mile, and it was a really easy kind of a flat downhill pack out because I killed him right below a creek drainage that I could just walk out. But it just about killed me. Had so much back problems after that until I got to the chiropractor. Just it was miserable. But I've had such a good experience with this pack, and I know you use one, but there's a lot of different people's bodies are different. It's like when you see the arguments online of this pack or these boots, the boots one is the funniest thing because everybody's like, nah, it's Zamberlins, nah, it's Crispies, nah, it's Hoffman's, not, and it's
whatever
almost like
fits you.
Yeah, right. And my feet, like Crispies, I didn't like the way the Zamberlins fit me. Some people might love the Hoffmans, or it's just all personal preference. When you get to those top tier packs, it's like when I used to sell archery equipment or guns for that matter. It's like I could, I'm a Glock guy. I like Glocks, just shoot them in law enforcement, and they've always done me really well. But if I went to sell somebody a Glock and they're like, oh, I don't like the way it feels in my hand. Like, cool, that's your personal preference. Don't buy a Smith & Wesson Sigma. Buy something comparable as far as price-wise and quality-wise, but find something that fits you, that feels good to you, because what feels good to me might not feel good to you. With archery equipment, it's worse. There's and we shoot ourselves in the foot with this whole as a hunting community. If you don't wear Sika gear, shame on you, or if you don't shoot a Matthews bow, or whatever. But so we kind of divide ourselves based on what gear we run, which is kind of sad sometimes. But my buddy Chris, he just bought a PSE Evo, the 34. Love that bow. I shot it in my little garage shop thing that I got here, and it's a great shooting bow. I love that thing. I used to talk so much crap on PSE when I worked in a bow shop. I used to call PSE piece of shit equipment. Like it was always a joke, but I shot for Bowtech at the time, and I was a Bowtech through and through, and it's not a good way because some people didn't like the grip on the Bowtech, and it's just so much personal preference that I think as long as you buy quality, whatever fits you and feels good to you, nobody can tell you any different,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
and whether
all them bows are pretty equal these days. I mean, you might have some that aren't, but basically once you get into that certain price range, they're all going to be about the same. I mean, one might be a little bit louder than the other one, but one might shoot softer than the other one. It's 100%. All going to vary.
They all got their pros and cons. You could sit there and make a list and compare them each, and it's funny watching some of these bow reviews online that are like, oh no, Matthews run 1/3 year running, and it's like, and I know guys that hate the Matthews, the way how front or top heavy it is and wants to fall forward, and just the balance of it, whatever. People have their own personal preference, but like you said, that price range, that price bracket, don't go by. You can't compare $100 boots to $300 boots. You can't compare. I always talk crap about Badlands because I've owned Badlands packs, but you can't compare Sports Warehouse $250 Badlands to a $700 Kafaru or Initial Sin or Stone, or you can't. There's apples and oranges, and same with weapon systems or anything else. Optics are a big one. You gotta what's in that price range. Buy what's the best you can in the price range that you have, and I think you'll be surprised stepping up the price bracket how much better it is than the next. There's a reason why it's a little bit more expensive. It's not just because they can do that. There's comfort reasons and other different reasons why they have multiple price brackets.
So did you get a commission? I got to ask you this. Did you get a commission when you were selling the firearms?
So
The reason I asked that is because
there
why
was,
would you put them in a Glock if you could put them in like a Les Bear or something like that?
yeah, well, again, price range. You got guys who are coming in there looking for their first gun, and the Nighthawks, the Les Bears, the Wilson Combats. That's somebody knows what they're doing when they come in and ask for that kind of a gun. That's not something that your first time gun buyer is gonna
No, but I
do.
would have been the guy.
Hey,
Oh man, you got to hold this. Check this out. This is the one you.
So that it's funny you mentioned that, because having worked in retail, I pick up on these things when I go in and I, kind of do my window shopping at some of these retail stores, and you go in there looking at a certain optic, and everybody's always like, "Oh, you got to look at these Swaros." They're $2,000 more than you're looking for to spend, but got to look at these. Like, dude, I know what you're doing. You can keep those Swaros in the. I know they're better. Trust me, if I could afford them, I would buy those. So it's I know that game, but they did. There was some of the manufacturers on the firearms would do monthly incentives. So if you sold, Smith and Wesson was one of them that could come to my mind. They just came out with the M&P series not too long before I was working in the gun store, and they were like, "Oh, if you sell 10 M&Ps this month, we'll give you an M&P for free." So that's a huge incentive for me. That like somebody coming in like, I want a 9mm. Look at the Smith and Wesson. Like, oh, well, I heard about this Glock. Nah, you don't want that. You want the Smith and Wesson. And so I have a hard time knowing all those kind of the things that go on. Sending anybody to a retail store to look at something, I always tell them like, "Hey, dude, if you need to go feel something like, a rifle, for instance, if you want to feel how it feels in your hand, feel how the bolt actuates, feel how the trigger is and everything, go to these stores, do it, but do your own research. Don't let these guys, because I'm sure they're still doing that type of a thing where they get a kickback if they sell this or whatever." And so I have a hard time. And like I said, I cut my teeth in retail, but it's I've seen a lot of kind of shady stuff going on as far as that goes, where it's like, this might not be what's best for the customer, but hey, I just upselling them on something, but I don't know.
So, with that being said, if somebody's going to look for a gun, you want something reliable, you want something that probably will fit your hand depending on the generation, just buy a Glock.
Yeah.
Just buy a Glock.
Yeah.
And no, there's no sponsorship here.
Yeah, they've come a long ways since I was selling guns, as far as now they have their slim frame series, like their single stacks, like the 43, the 43X and stuff like that. And that was a big thing with smaller statured people being able to get their hands, because the Glock is a blocky, and the grip angle on a Glock was usually hard to sell people to if they've, they don't have the 1911 grip angle. So a lot of people, "Oh, this feels weird in my hand." And so, it's like, hey, if it's not comfortable to you and you can't get to the trigger properly, and being a firearms instructor, that's a big thing, is being able to get on the trigger and having it comfortable in your hand where you can have a good solid grip. A lot of guys will have to break their grip. And so the recoil is just on their thumbs to get to
the mag
trigger,
release,
especially on a Glock, or a mag
I
release.
I still have to shift my hand on the mag release, but
I
you know
too.
what? It is what it is.
Yeah,
I've adapted.
That's yeah. And I don't even think about it anymore. It's just, you do it enough, you just do it. But I build Glocks. I build polymer, Glocks on polymer 80s. I'm a Glock armor, so the least amount of parts that are in a gun like a Glock like that, they're very simple. They're easy to work on yourself. I was a SIG armorer too at my last agency, and those SIG, we shot the 226s, and
a lot of parts.
Holy cow, a lot of parts, a lot of little parts, and a lot of parts that broke. Those things were very unreliable. We shot old ones though. They didn't.
No, I think the new ones I think they've come a long way as far as 100%. Repeatability, the dependability of them, for sure.
This is how old the ones that they issued us were at my old department. Is they were German SIGs, so they were made in West Germany. They didn't have a light rail on them, and they didn't have night sights. So, or the night sights that they did have, the tritium was so old in them that they weren't night sights anymore. So they were very old and they needed a lot of parts replaced, but the power of money that they didn't want to replace all the parts. So we were having parts break left and right. You know, guys at the range are like, "Hey, my gun won't shoot." "Oh, your hammer spring's broken." You know, it's like, "Oh, that's not a good feeling." You know, and they were armored every year. So it's like, you know, they were 40 cal. So that caliber, that cartridge beats up handguns quite a bit. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of the SIG 226. I know I'm going to probably catch a lot of crap for that because I know I got buddies that love them, but
what, bro?
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah. It's like everything. Like,
Here
I
comes
swear by this 226.
the forums blowing up.
Oh, dude. Yeah. It's all about what fits your, and I like the agencies that are like, hey, as long as it's, you know, 940 or 45, carry whatever gun you want that's within these parameters, because, you know, you might shoot a Smith & Wesson M&P, great, or you might shoot a SIG 226, great, but you might not shoot a Glock very well. Well, why would I throw a Glock in your hand if that you're not very good with that firearm? I want you to have, as an agency, I want you to have what you could shoot with the best, because you're going to be comfortable with that gun and you're going to be the best shot you can be with that firearm. And, you know, there's limitations, like everybody wants to carry a 1911 or a 2011. And I love those guns. I just don't know if there's a lot of room for them in law enforcement. I have a couple of them. I
only
carry
if you're
them off duty
Longmire
sometimes and stuff. But yeah, right. Hey, man, I do love those guns, but there is, it's hard going from a Glock or even that SIG 226 to shooting. I used to shoot USPSA competitions, single stack division with my 45. And there's a couple times where you getting on that trigger, because the trigger being so much different than the SIGs, that you were getting on that trigger, you know, preloading it as you're coming out and torching off a round before you wanted to. And it's not a good feeling. But yeah, so I that's mainly why I stick with Glock. Just it's my comfortability in the training of it. I've got so many rounds downrange with a Glock and being comfortable with it that I don't have to think about it when I go to draw. You know, heaven forbid I have to have an off-duty incident where I have to defend my life or somebody else's life. I don't want to have to think, okay, which gun am I carrying today? Is it my 1911? You know, so it's just a continuity of training when it comes to all that stuff.
So let's transition a little bit and go back to boots that you mentioned. You said you went from what to crispy? Because I'm just kind of curious. Because I was using the Mindel whatever, and they were actually really good boots. Almost too firm of a sole for me. Kind of like Kenetrex are just too stiff for my foot. Yeah. They're too stiff. It's like you can't really get any feeling of what the terrain you're on or any of that kind of stuff. And I do like a medium sole, but those were definitely too firm. And then I mean, they lasted. The Mindel lasted a long time though. I think I got like 3 years out of them, a couple 100 miles every season, and still had the waterproofing after 3 years, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
But so then I just bought a pair of Zamberlins. I got the Trail Light somethings, but so I have wide toes and a narrow heel. So it's kind of hard to get fitment that's good. I like the stiffness of the sole of the Zamberlin, but they put this like structure on the inside of the boot in between the layers of like the leather and the inside of the boot right in the toe area. So whatever this structure is like squeezing the crap out of my toes, and I can't wear them for more than a couple hours. And I've even I've soaked them with the garden hose, tried to break them in, and whatever that structure is, it's like rubber or something inside there, and it's just not going to give me the flex I need. So now I'm going to have to buy another pair of boots.
And yeah, and that's tough because Crispies I like the way they fit my feet, and they have a flex rating. They'll tell you on their website or Black Ovis or wherever you get them what the flex rating is. And so I always had that problem too. I always used to use just got them at Cabela's or Bass Pro or whatever. They were a Wolverine hunting boot. I didn't need anything. Hunting in California, where I grew up was kind of rolling lava beds, sagebrush. There wasn't like you know, the high country, above timberline, alpine kind of stuff. And it was hot. We hunted them in August, so we were hunting water holes a lot, or walking, slow hunting patches of timber. Or there was a lot of lava beds, and the bucks loved to bed in these lava beds, so we would still hunt these lava beds. And so I wanted a soft sole. We weren't doing some nasty, strenuous uphills, downhills, and stuff like that. It was a pretty flat walking. And those lasted a long time. But when I came up and went elk hunting that one time with the rifle, I think 2015, we were hunting some nasty stuff. And boy, those things did not help my feet. So when I moved up here, I bought some Crispies. I went around. There's a couple local stores that got Crispies, and I was able to try some on. And I started with the Summit GTXs. I think they're a 3 flex rating, which is kind of mid rating for them for the flex. And they do a really good job. They're not too hard. They're not too soft. When you're walking the antelope country, flatter kind of stuff, they don't kind of fatigue your legs because you don't have any flex. You got the flex still in them, but they're still stiff enough for the nasty stuff. And then I bought a pair of brick stalls for they're 4 flex. They're an insulated brick stall. They're 200 gram thinsulate, just for the winter hunts. I mean, like I said, growing up where I did, it got cold, but we were never hunting in the cold. We were hunting in August, so I never needed any insulated boots. And the first year I hunted, an October deer hunt, or even into the November hunts, I was like, what is this? Hunting in snow and stuff? Like, that's just never had to do that before. So I had to get my feet. I know that is a big thing about my hunting is my feet, my foot care. It's I know I got feet that are prone to blisters and hot spots, and so I try to prevent that no matter what boots I wear. I just know it's just like my feet sweat a lot, so that moisture in there just does some serious rubbing. And no matter how tight I get the boots or sock liners or not, it's just I know it's coming. So I either I usually had I would put Leuco tape on all the hot spots that I knew I was going to get before I left the truck. So I would pre-do it with Leuco tape just to prevent, that, so I didn't get up, a couple miles in and go, okay, I'm getting a hot spot now, getting out and putting it on there, try to stop it before it started. And that helped a lot, knowing I knew where I was going to get them just based on how much my feet sweat. But then guy from Western Contours got me onto this stuff. I thought I had some laying around here, but I don't think I do. It's called Roo wool. Don't try to say that too fast. It's like WURU wool. And I think it's a merino wool, but it's just a chunk of wool in a bag. And you take it off and you kind of place it on those hot spots and slide your sock over. And my problem with a Leuco tape is after, unless you wanted to strip it off every night, reapply it every day, I always just left it on. And after a while, if it's just getting wet, it would kind of migrate a little bit. It lasted quite a while, but it would eventually migrate. But that Ruru wool kind of adheres to, you could take your sock off and it stays in your sock where you put it. And so you can, and I would always peel it out of the sock and reapply it. You could reapply it. You didn't have to rip off new stuff and reapply it. And man, I used it all during the bear hunt. And my buddy Chris, he was having some hot spot issues, and gave him some of that, and it really helped him out too. So, and how light that is compared to, I used to carry a full roll of Leuco tape with me. Just that's how much I used it. But that pack of wool, I just rip a big chunk off and put it in a Ziploc bag. And I hate saying it weighs nothing, because it obviously weighs something, but I don't even think it would register on my scale. It's that light.
You probably could have even fashioned a spoon.
Yeah, right. Oh, yes, I should have. But yeah, and that's what I like about the Crispies. And I actually wear a Crispy. I think it's the Sniper for my work boot too. It's just I've had really good luck with them, and I have had to use their warranty. The rand was kind of peeling off the one, sent it back, no questions asked. It got fixed and back to me within 2 weeks.
Nice.
Never would have known it happened. So that is a nice thing. But I do like how I think my next ones are the Laponias. I think they're a 2 flex rating just to, wear around, range boot, even hunting on them. I know Lampers like Laponias, but
I hate to say it, but I think I might have to jump on the crispy train here. I've tried them on before though, and I don't know, it might have been just the ones I tried on. They felt super comfortable, but then again, the flex rating of them. I mean, I had to drive all the way down to Springfield, which is like 2 hours. I don't know, 2 hours 15 minutes away from me, just to try them on because nobody else carried Crispies, So I went down and tried them on, and then I was like, and the flex rating must have been because I felt like my feet would just get super fatigued from all the flex on the sole, and I wouldn't have enough arch support, it would just wear me out. And so I was like, I'm staying away from the Crispies, and that's when I bought the Mindles. And then now I'm kind of thinking maybe I ought to give Crispies a try again. Although, I mean, I'll have to get a flat brim hat and, like once you go down that road and start wearing medium husky T-shirts, I just.
Oh man, yeah, we're 3/4 length Sitka puffies and
right, or the new sleeping bag / onesie snuggie or whatever.
Yeah. So my buddy that I hunt with, I give him so much crap. He's a good sport about it, but he was wearing First Light stuff when I first met him when we were hunting together, and then he wanted to try Sitka stuff, and he is such a snob when it comes to different camo patterns or just different brands wearing them that he sold all of his First Light stuff down to the T, everything. Sold all of his First Light stuff and bought all new Sitka stuff. And, he got those 3/4 length puffy pants, and he will never admit that I was right, but I would give him so much crap about that. I was like, what, just the bottom quarter of your leg doesn't get cold, or what? What's that about? You're supposed to, you wear them with your gaiters and this and that and the other thing. And I was like, that's cool. I could wear my full length puffies with my gaiters too, And then one trip he forgot his gaiters and he was running around with his 3/4 length puffies on. I was like, how's that bottom of your legs feel? And they're fine. They're warm. Yeah, he was never going to admit that I was right, but I'm pretty sure he was getting cold.
Nice. I think. Have you heard of Forlow?
Forlow?
Yes, For the Love of Hunting, American-made hunting, technical hunting apparel. They're new to the game.
I think. Do they look like the ASAT camo? The First Light ASAT camo?
Kind of, yes.
That Predator camo, real big, blotchy pattern.
No, I wouldn't say that because it's blended.
But it's a light tan base with almost like a tiger stripey type of a pattern look.
No, I wouldn't say that.
No. Okay, no. You'll have to send me their stuff because I saw an ad for a company the other day that looked new.
So my thing is I've been slowly trying to replace out anything and everything I could with American-made gear slowly over time, so I'm not going broke and my wife kills me, whatever.
Right.
But
But
trying to do that, and one of the things I came across because I was like, my Sitka pants are kind of starting to get. I had the Timberline pants, and they're starting to get a little worn out, and I was thinking they're definitely faded compared to the jacket that I never wear. But so that's the other thing. Like camo doesn't matter, colors don't matter. But whatever. So I was like, it's starting to get worn out. I'm gonna replace the pants. So then I started looking, doing a little bit of research, and came across this Forlow, and it's made in America. I was like, how can I go wrong with that? They're actually super badass pants. I like them better than the Timberline pant. So if you're in the market for a new pant, just saying, they've got a lot of stuff that they have plans for. It's just not made yet. You got to try and get the name out there before you can make 2,000 different SKUs. But but so like it's pretty basic what they have right now. But they do have down puffy layers I may consider, but the pants are pretty badass. I'm totally digging them.
Do they have the vent zip on the side?
They do.
You know?
They do.
Oh, dude, I like me some of that. That is.
They have a vent zip. They have knee pads integrated in. They have a.
Are they removable?
I don't think they are, but they dry quick because I have had them wet. And so they DWR treat all of their fabric before they put it all together. So highly water resistant, and it's already a water resistant material anyway. And the way they do the DWR, though, is they put it in like a giant, it's like a Connex that's a vacuum. So they put it in there, the material in there, they DWR it, and then they pull the DWR through so it's still water treated, but it doesn't clog the pores of the fabric, so it's still breathable. Super important. So pretty neat. I wore them all last season deer hunting. Went through mud and muck and saddle hunted, so I was up scraping and climbing on my platform, so all the abrasion from that. And they used this stuff that was like from the automotive industry for the knee pad, like the scuff pad on the outer layer of your knee. Super durable stuff. I thought a couple times I was for sure going to tear them open, just stupid stuff climbing in and out of the tree. And
sharp those saddles, your knees are on the tree though.
Yeah.
All the time.
Sharp gear. And they held up. So I was pretty impressed. So it's something to look into if you're looking for, because I know you're a gear junkie like I am. So
do they make a merino base layer?
So technically, no, because merino is not American wool, right? That's like New Zealand wool,
Australian or
So they're working on something right now that it will be Montana wool, which still has the same rating and everything as the actual merino does. So they're working on something that's supposed to be coming out. I don't know when that's dropping. I'm super excited about that. But they do have another base layer now that's called Trizar, which is the same stuff they used to use on the space shuttles. So it actually dissipates heat, but it also retains heat all at the same time. So it's a thermoregulator, I guess you would call it. And it's got like anti-stink properties built in to the whatever the fabric is that you're using. It's automatic with that. So I do have the shirt.
That's my thing. It's the sweat. I like my feet. I sweat and I stink quick with a synthetic. That's why I like the
I haven't gotten any stink on, so I only have the top, but I will say that you could wear it a couple days. I haven't worn it like super long, and plus, I mean, it's pretty freaking cold in November here. But I don't know. I haven't really put it to the test yet in like warm weather, I guess. But
and that's I did a test with merino. Actually, my first light merino Aero Wool 150 top. Wearing a vest all the time in the heat for law enforcement is as soon as you put the vest on, you start sweating, and you don't stop sweating until you take it off. So 10, 11 hours, you're sweating in that. And man, it was with a synthetic layer underneath or cotton. I used to stink so bad. And you're the worst, your worst enemy. So all that comes right up. So you're smelling this the whole shift. And I was like, you know what? I use this merino wool stuff to hunt with because it's antimicrobial and kind of odor resistant. And so I was like, I'm going to try it. So I wore that underneath my vest. First day, didn't stink at all. And as soon as I took my vest off, it dried real quick. I was like, okay. For the second day and a third day and a fourth day and a full 5-day work week without washing it, which some people are like, what the heck? It probably wasn't the most sanitary, but just to see if I could get it to stink, and it never did stink. Full 5 days of wearing the same shirt, sweating in it all the time in that vest. I was like, holy cow, like this is how much better that is than the synthetic to me. And I know there's other synthetics that have different coatings or stuff that they impermeate the synthetic with to help with the odor, but And I was sold on merino after I did that.
Now you just inspired me. I'm gonna have to take the Trizar shirt, the base layer from Forlow. I'm gonna put it on and I'm gonna run for a full week and then see.
There you go. Don't wash it.
Yeah, don't wash it and see what it does. But I think
your wife's not gonna appreciate that one.
She doesn't care.
Oh, man.
But I appreciate you coming on and talking to me. I think that's probably a good point to wrap it up because we could probably go on forever. But
we could talk. Yeah, we haven't even scratched the surface on a lot of the skier stuff that I got sitting over here. But
maybe
I know you got to get some sleep. It's what, 11 o'clock back there?
Yeah, it's getting there.
Yeah, it is.
So we could probably have another discussion another time, and we'll really get into some more gear. But
definitely.
So people, if they want to kind of follow you and you're starting the whole Gear Junkies Anonymous thing too, where can they find all that and do all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I got a Facebook, but I'm not on there as much. But on Instagram, backcountry _ BABA _ YAGA, backcountry Baba Yaga. A lot of people pronounce it funny, but it's kind of a play. You ever seen the movie John Wick?
Yes, I was going to ask you that. Was it either like the John Wick character, the killer from John Wick, or was it like the old ancient Russian folklore about the woods dweller that?
So it's more the play on the John Wick thing about he's not the boogeyman, he's the one we send to kill the boogeyman kind of a thing. So that's kind of where I got that. But, and then Gear Junkies Anonymous on Instagram too. I have that one. That one's just kind of up and going. I haven't really spent a whole lot of time and effort on that one yet, but it's getting there.
Nice. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on, man.
Hey. Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.